Alright guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be focusing on the relic system. So there's been a significant overhaul to the whole relic system since last closed beta. They've added and changed a lot of things. So we'll rehash some of the basics, talk about relics if you're unfamiliar with the system as a whole, but I'm sure many of you have seen this before. And then we'll move on to the biggest changes that have happened to the system, and then we'll go into the main stats breakdown for each piece and what is possible for each piece. So relics are the gear system in Honkai Star Rail. It's made up of 4 main gear pieces and then 2 planar ornaments. So the main gear is split up into 4 and 2. The main gear consisting of head, hands, body, and feet, and the planar ornaments consisting of the sphere and the link rope. So relics can be leveled up to increase their main stat and their substats up to plus 15. So every level will increase the main stat, and every plus 3 will either add a new substat or roll into a current one. The maximum is 4 substats for a 5-star relic. So the relic system has changed a lot since last time, with the biggest addition being the planar ornaments. We're going to talk about the biggest changes, but first let's just go over how the system worked before so that you have a bit of a comparison to work with. Okay, so the old system. So previously, before we had planar ornaments, we still had 6 pieces, but they all made up the same set. So there were 6 main pieces. The first 3, there was a locked flat HP piece, there was a locked flat attack piece, and there was a locked flat defense piece. So the other 3 pieces were all random main stat rolls, and like we have now, some main stats were only available on certain pieces. So because sets were made up of 6 pieces, there was actually a 2, 4, and 5 piece set bonus. So the biggest things about the old system is that a set was made up of 6 pieces, there was a flat defense piece, and certain main stats were locked to different pieces compared to now. Okay, so moving on to the biggest changes to the relic system, we have the addition of planar ornaments. So this now splits the gear pieces into 4 pieces for the main gear and then 2 pieces for the planar ornaments. So because the planar ornaments are a thing and there's no longer a 6-piece set, the 5-piece set bonus has been removed. This means that there's no longer any room for having an off piece. Before, you could have a 5-piece plus 1 off piece. That's no longer possible without sacrificing some kind of bonus. So there's been some rearrangement of which main stats could roll into which piece, but we will cover that when we get to the gear section. The flat defense piece has been removed. So before, there was a locked flat defense piece the way that there was a flat attack and flat HP. That's no longer the case. Defense was locked to the body piece, and now this can roll into several different main stats. And the last of the most notable changes is the addition of the break effect stat. So as of right now, we know the break effect stat directly affects the damage when you shatter an enemy's weakness. It affects the amount of DOT damage when you inflict weakness break. And I also believe break effect directly affects how much the enemy's action is delayed once you break them as well. Okay, so moving on to new relics, we'll talk about main gear first. The main gear pieces are made up of head, hands, body, and feet. These are farmed from Caverns of Corrosion. That's just the official name for relic domains. You can also obtain these relics from weekly bosses, but that's tied to just the Musketeer set and the Thief set. So the first 2 pieces of the main gear, being the head and the hands, are locked. Head piece is locked to flat HP, where the hands are locked to flat attack. So moving on to the body piece, this was previously locked to flat defense. This is not the case anymore. This goes for all upcoming pieces that are not locked, which is everything else. This is body, feet, sphere, and rope. They all have the possibility of rolling attack percent, HP percent, and defense percent. And the main stats that are locked to the body piece are crit rate, crit damage, outgoing healing percent, and effect hit rate. These stats can only be rolled on the body piece. So moving on to the last piece of the main gear, we have the boots. And as I previously mentioned, attack percent, HP percent, and defense percent are all possible. So the other main stats that are available to be rolled on the boots are speed and break effect. Speed is only available on the boots. Break effect is available on one of the planar ornaments, which we'll get to. Alright, moving on to planar ornaments. These are acquired in the simulated universe. As you go through the simulated universe, there are immersifiers after each elite boss. You can either spend the immersifier tokens, or you can just spend straight resin for these relics. So there's a certain number of immersifier tokens that you get per week. I think it might just be 1 right now that you get for free for the simulated universe weekly rewards, but then after that you have to spend resin to roll at each one of these. The number per week doesn't really matter, that may change anyway, but just know that you get some for free, and then after that you have to spend resin for them. So moving on to the first planar ornaments, we have the sphere, and this is where your elemental damage is tied to. So of course you have attack, HP, and defense percent as possible main stats, but then you have all 7 of the elements possible main stats as well. And the sphere is the only place where you can get the elemental damage boost. And lastly, we have the rope, of course, attack, HP, defense percent, and then break effect, and energy regeneration rate. Energy regenerate is only available on the rope. Break effect is also available on the boots. So there's only 5 possible main stats for the rope, and there's 10 possible main stats for the sphere. Alright, moving on to substats. I'm sure most of you know substats are just the secondary stats on each piece. Every time you +3 a piece, it'll roll into either a current substat, or if there is not the maximum for that piece already, it'll add a new one. So these are all of the available substats. Unless there are some exceptions, all of these are available to be rolled on any piece as long as it doesn't match the main stat of that piece. Okay, so I want to briefly touch on how we know what main stats can be tied to which piece. There is a relic salvaging system. So you can create relics. So it costs 100 of these relic remains to create a specific piece. You get 10 of these per 5-star salvaged. So it's 10 salvaged 5 stars for 1 new one. This is a random main stat. So in addition to this relic salvaging system, we have the self-modeling resin, which allows you to choose the main stat of the piece that you're creating. And this allows us to confirm all of the main stat availabilities for each piece, if you're wondering how I acquire the information. So there is currently 1 self-modeling resin, and it's available from the battle pass. So you'll get 1 of these per battle pass period. It's a free material, so you don't have to actually buy the battle pass to get it. So that means you can choose the main stat of 1 relic 1 time per battle pass period, and that is all. So that's all I have to share about the biggest changes to the relic system. I hope you found this useful if you're just kind of curious about what has changed, or if you're trying to think about maybe how to build your characters in the future. I think the changes are definitely positive and have been a pretty decent overhaul to the whole system. So if you have any questions or comments, or if I missed anything, let me know in the comments down below. If you liked the video, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and follow me at Twitch at twitch.tv/smexu. As I'm making this video, the beta will be ending next week. Also, if you're curious about what relic sets are available to build your characters with, I'll be making a video really soon about all of them as a final closed beta. So if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.